Today we have another code review. This is from Lina in Germany. Lina, thank you so much for asking me to look at your site. Before we get started, just a couple of things so you know what it is that I'm looking for. First, I am not a designer. I may point out things like margin, padding, layout, things like that, but I am not here to critique anybody's design. Second, I will look under the hood in Chrome DevTools. So I want to check and see if you're using HTML5 elements like section, main, footer, header, things like that. Things that provide semantic value and are good for SEO and accessibility. Next, I'm going to check to see if the site is responsive. I want to see the site go from desktop to mobile and back again smoothly and seamlessly. Next, we're going to check accessibility, and I think accessibility can be really overwhelming, especially if you're new to accessibility or you're just a new developer in general. I encourage all developers, period, to check out the WebAIM Million project. This is a survey of a million websites every year where they point out the top handful or so of issues that they consistently find. So that's basically my guidepost for what I'm checking for. The final thing is also accessibility related, which is I want to be able to tab through with the keyboard, make sure that the correct elements are receiving focus and that I can get through the site using my keyboard. So let's get started. All right, this is Lina's portfolio. So the first thing that I'm noticing, well, the first thing I'm noticing obviously is Lina. I love, Lina, that you put a picture of yourself on your website. So no shade to people who don't want to do that, but I personally think that it's a good move. So I applaud you for doing that. My second observation is that we have a very wide screen. Now, I have a big monitor. I have a 27-inch monitor. So I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in. And I think that that's going to help. I suspect that most people having kind of a normal laptop experience, this is probably what they would see. My next observation is this. We have covering a lot of distance here in how how far across the width of text that you're asking your users to read across. So if you think of your layout in terms of a 12-column layout, you would never want text to flow all the way across all 12 columns. And often, most websites have a wrapper. So I see that you are going pretty much from edge to edge, and that's not wrong. There are lots of instances where that is appropriate for your layout. I would encourage you, though, to make sure that you have, let's see here. I would encourage you to make sure that you have a wrapper around your elements that pulls things in, especially if you have text that is full width across your layout, that you are not asking users to read all the way from point A to point B without any breaks, any columns, any containers. I think the rule is 1,000 characters. We can look that up when we're done, but I think the rule is 1,000 characters. You don't want your width to be more than 1,000 characters long. So I would encourage you, looking in the markup here, and you can do it around the entire thing, or you can do it section by section. I tend to put wrappers within each section, and I generally make my maximum width about 1,200 pixels, or I think it's 75 rems. So I would encourage you to think about that. Again, there are lots of situations where it's appropriate to have full width content, especially if you have a content box on one end and an image on the other end, and the design is really to have them all be all the way to the edge. That's totally okay. But for this, I would like to see this text broken up a little bit. So we've got your text skills here. I love that you have the branded logos and icons for your text skills. I also love that, you know, you're a woman after my own heart, that you believe in the basics. The whole point of this channel is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and that, you know, we're really thinking about core foundational skills. Good old jQuery, that's what I started. Node, Vue, I know Vue very well. That's what I use at work. Tailwind, I've never used Tailwind, but I know that it is a very popular CSS framework. So I love that you're taking advantage of the branded logos. You also have a nice little grid here for your projects with screenshots for the projects that you've done. So well done. I love that you're doing that. Along with the description, so you have a description here, and then you've got some contact information here for Instagram, LinkedIn, and a nice footer. So let's take a look at your markup and see what's going on. So we've got body, header, main, and we've got footer. So that's really, really good. We have, what's the script tag here? Okay, so it looks like you're using Vue. I'm guessing that this is a Vue app. Nothing wrong with that at all whatsoever. Let's see what's happening here in the header. Good, we have a nav tag. Perfect. We have an unordered list. Very good. And then we have our welcome. Welcome to Alina's portfolio as an H1. That is excellent. I'm glad that you have an H1 right at the top of the page. It just sets the tone for template hierarchy, so that's perfect. Then we have a section here. This is your image, and you do have alt text here, image of Alina. And then we have moving text. And I'm not sure what you're doing to do the moving text. I'm guessing that you have some JavaScript or jQuery. That I think that that's fine. I would encourage you, anytime you have something like this that is basically an animation, include a pause button. So if somebody comes to the site and it's really no different, in my opinion, than a video. Anytime you have something that is animated like this, you want to be able to give people the option to stop the animation. I think there's a media query called prefers reduced motion. You could also do that, but the WCAG accessibility standard has been very clear that prefers reduced motion is not a substitute for giving people a pause button. So I would encourage you to add a pause button here so people could stop the animation if they don't like movement, or if movement is somehow triggering for them. That is an accessibility concern. Other than that, I think it's adorable that you have your image and you have this little hello message. So I have no complaints about that at all. I would just make sure to include a pause button. The other thing I would encourage you to do is make sure that you always wrap your images in figure tags. It's this correct semantic way to handle really any kind of media. So look up figure. You don't have to use a fig caption, but it is appropriate to put your images and any kind of media inside of a figure tag. And then you have about me here, which is an H2. That's perfect. So you're following that good template hierarchy. So we've got about me, and then you've got my projects and contacts. So you're using, let me see here. I think we've got text skills also, I'm guessing, is an H2. That's perfect. That means that you have an H1 at the top of the page. You have H2s to introduce each of your sections, and that's exactly how you should be doing it. So that shows that you understand that template hierarchy. You're using a section up here for home. So basically, I think for what I would call a hero, that's not wrong. I do think that welcome portfolio and home should be inside of main. If I was doing this, I would make sure that you had header. Yeah, so we've got header, div, section, main, and footer. I think it should be header, main, and footer. I could be wrong. Maybe somebody will correct me in the comments. If it was me, I would make sure that this div and this section were all inside of main. I think that that's appropriate, and you could still link to the welcome and the home the same way, but semantically it is correct to put it inside of main. Let's see. And then within main, I would make sure that each of these things were sections. So we have about me, artwork and skills, projects, and contact. I think those could all be sections. So I think welcome portfolio could be a section, home could be a section. Those could all be sections. And then I think I see here that you're using BR tags. So BR is break, and that basically forces there to be, I mean, would you call it like, my guess is that you're using this to create space. So we've got artwork and skills, BR, and then my projects. Where are we here? Artwork and skills, BR, my projects. So if you were to put, for example, you have the H2 my projects, and then you have a div with an ID of projects. If these two things together were inside of a section to denote that they were its own section, you wouldn't need the BR tag to break that up, or to, I think you're forcing it to go to the second line. So I would do that. And the same with your contact, your H2 contact, and your div ID contact. So this could be in a section called contact. This could be in a section called projects. And then up here in artwork skills, you've essentially done that. You have H2 tech skills and then div with a class of tech logos. I would just change this from a div to a section. And then we have the same thing here with the about me. I would like to see, I mean, well, you do have your H2 right here. Let's see here. So we've got the image on the right. We have the H2 on the left, but the image comes first and the H2 comes second. I would flip these. I would flip these so the H2 comes first and then the image comes after that, because visually we see the about me coming first and the image coming second, but in the DOM they're flipped. Now, I don't think this is the end of the world. I feel like I'm being a little bit nitpicky. However, I will say this. I've had this pointed out to me more than once. This is why I'm aware of this. I've been told in my day job to fix this, that this is not acceptable. So that's why I'm pointing this out to you. And then of course, you're using paragraph tags. That is absolutely appropriate. So I would encourage you to flip those. Let's take a look at the header and the navigation. Okay, so right, we have a nav tag, we have a UL. I think everything looks great. I have no complaints. I mean, I have complaints. I think that there are some improvements you could make to the markup. I don't think you've done anything glaringly wrong. I think that you could make obvious improvements and not need these BR tags if you had everything in sections. That would get everything lined up really, really well. Let's take a look at the color contrast. So let's grab our contrast checker. This over here. And, oh, I mean, I'm wondering if we're even going to need to check contrast, because I have a feeling that this black is, I feel like black is good against almost everything. And I lost this. So let's do... So our foreground color is basically just going to be white. Change that to a hex value. And then our background color is this dark kind of red salmon-y color. Ooh. And we are not quite, well, it passes for large text. And large text, let's see here what large text counts as. Large text is defined as 14 points, typically 18.66 pixels, and bold or larger, or 18 point, typically 24 pixels or larger. So let's see what we have here. Font size, 18 pixels. So it's pretty close. 18.66 pixels. Technically, if you bumped it up just like 2/3 of a pixel, you would pass for accessibility for large text for the AA standard. And that's for the white against the red. Let's see what this is for black. And that also does pass even for normal text for AA, and that is our hover color. So that is something to consider, Lina. That is something to consider when it comes to the white. I think if you bump this up, let's see here, 0.66. I mean, it's not a huge difference, and it is bold already. So, I mean, you're pretty close there. If you just bumped it up like that 2/3 of a pixel, you would be good. Let's see what else is on our list. And our links are appropriate, so they're not empty. They're styled like buttons, which is completely fine. It doesn't matter if they're styled like a button or styled like a link. It's what they are functionally. I don't think you have any buttons on the page, so we don't need to worry about that. Let's look at these. What are these? So you're using images for your social media icons. That is absolutely fine. Editing Angela here. When I was doing Lina's code review, I did not notice that the social media icons were already SVGs. I saw that they were images and I didn't even check the source. So I apologize, Lina, for not noticing that. I do still think that you should embed your SVGs right into your markup. That XML can go right into your HTML file or whatever you're using. I think you were using Vue to build this web page. Go ahead and just put those SVGs right into the Vue template. You have so much more power over the stroke or the fill or the colors for your hover states, your active states, things like that. And then you don't have those additional HTTP requests to the server to retrieve those SVGs. You have alt text for those images. That is all perfectly fine. Let's look at the images in your portfolio. Same, wrapped in an anchor tag. And we've also got alt text. Again, for images, I would recommend using figure tags. What else do we have here? So let's check the overall responsiveness. And I'm going to zoom back out again. Beautiful. Look at that responsiveness with that grid. And I can tell that those images, those icons are also nice and responsive. They respond well to the browser. Let's check your grid here. Very nice, Lina. Very nice. So we see that that grid responds really well. Okay, so I am noticing with the images here, do you see your screenshots here they get a little squishy. They get a little squishy. So here's how we can fix that. What I do every time, okay, so let's start with this. Images by default are inline elements, which means they are designed to flow like text, right? Who decided that? I don't know. Somebody decided that. I automatically take images and I just write as part of the code. Let's do this. Let's add this to the browser. So we have an image. I always say display block. That's the first thing that I do. So they're block level elements. And then I say max width 100%. And then the height should be auto. Now I realize this changed your social media icons down here, but let's check now and see what happens to these screenshots. Do you see now how the screenshots are responding? So when you do max width 100% and height auto, and I think what was happening is, where was it? Yeah, we have height 200 pixels. So it looks like we're using aspect ratio auto to 400 by 200. That is completely fine. I mean, that is a great way to make sure that you're preserving the aspect ratio of your images. But you do not have to, in order to use aspect ratio, you don't have to have a pixel value for your height. You can have just height auto. And it says that in the spec. I know it says that. I just read it on MDN. So with height auto, we have that max width of 100%, and then we preserve that aspect ratio, and those images now are responding to the browser. Whereas before, with that defined pixel value, you see there how that image is getting squished. So I would recommend that anytime you start a new project, you just sort of have like a toolbox of styles that you're using. And one of my toolbox styles is that I always do images display block, max with 100% height auto. And then my images I know are always responsive. That's a great way to do that. Lina, I think you did a really nice job here. I would like to see you get some of these things into a container so we don't have to read all the way from over here to all the way over here. In fact, let's go ahead and let's see if we can even quickly find that answer. Let's see, character with text with readability. So optimal line length or column width for body text is 40 to 70 characters. I think I said 1,000. That was obviously wrong. When people read, their eyes jump across a line of text, pausing momentarily to take in groups of 3 or 4 words. Studies have shown that readers can make only 3 or 4 of these jumps per line before reading becomes tiring. So I would encourage you to get everything into a container, something that pulls that text in, so we're not asking readers to read in long lengths. If you need help with layouts, and this is for everybody, if you need help with layouts, I can't stress this enough, look at Pinterest. Not now. Let's look at Pinterest. Let's just say web design inspiration. So something like this, right? The anatomy of a website homepage, where, I mean, it's a tendency to say that it might be cliche, but it's really, there's a reason designs like this work. They provide users with a consistent user experience. Users understand where on the page they need to go to get the information they need, and they understand the behavior of the page. You don't want users to read lines of text that are way too long, so they're distracted and can't get through it. You don't want users to have to learn how to use your website, and you don't want users to be frustrated with the user experience, right? You want them to not even notice the design. You want them to just be happy the entire time they're on the page and get the information they need. So there's a reason that these types of layouts work. It's because they've been so fully tested over the years and that users know how to use them, essentially, right? So if you need help with layouts or providing a good experience, I would encourage you to look at a site like Pinterest, because there is so much information here on UI, UX, and layouts. And okay, but don't look at this one, because this one is way too wide, and I just told you not to do that. But I think you know what I mean, right? There's lots of great design here. And then once you add your color palette and your images and your words, all of those things, even though you use a layout that has been done before, all of those unique things about you and your pictures and your smiling face and your content are what make the site uniquely you. It's a layout that provides a good user experience, right? So let's check one more thing now. Let's check and see how things stack up with accessibility. So I'm not seeing anything here that is wildly bad related to accessibility. You have all of your alt tags. I already told you that I think you should put a pause button here for the text. Let's make sure. Yep, these all have good alt tags. That's great. All right, we'll try it one more time. And then I'm going to tab. Yep, so tabbing works. So that's great, Lina. You don't have any buttons, you don't have any forms, so we don't have to worry about labels or ARIA labels or anything like that. I think you have a great start here. I would like to see maybe just a little bit bigger text to meet that bare minimum accessibility standard. Technically, you're off by about a pixel. If you get your content into more defined sections, I think that would be really good. Get the content pulled in a little bit so it's not so far apart. And I think you have an excellent start to a portfolio. So I'm so glad that you asked me to look at your site. It was my absolute pleasure to do so. If you have a website and you would like me to look at it for you and give you a code review, we have a Discord server. I'll leave that link down in the description. You can also reach out to me on Instagram. This is meant to be a positive experience. It's meant to be uplifting and encouraging and motivating. It is not meant to bring you down or tell you that you're not doing it right. It's just meant to be helpful and fun and positive. So thank you for joining me. Have a great day wherever you are, and I will see you in my next one.